Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Fans React Friday here on the Fans React channel. Obviously, I'm your host, Johnny, for this evening, and I'm joined, as ever, by the wonderful Dom Aberdeen. Dom, how are you doing?
Stop it. I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good. And also joined by Findlay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, pleasure to speak to you face to face for the first time. Well, screen to screen, I suppose. But yeah, nice to meet you all the same. And we've got a lovely evening of very positive and no negatives at all Sunderland news to talk about. Anyone who mentions anything negative is getting shot. I'll only have positivity. All right. Nobody can find negatives in not scoring 2 games. Okay, nobody can find them. But in all seriousness, it's been a week where we've had 2 games. So far, we played obviously Preston North End at the weekend. And then we had Blackpool during the week. 2 0-0 draws. So picked up points, didn't get beat, didn't concede any goals, but also crucially didn't manage to put any in the opposition's net either. It's obviously created a bit of debate, a bit of mixed opinion in the fan base. We've got some on the one hand who are overwhelmingly positive, some who are seeing a couple of cracks appearing, shall we say, in the Sunderland squad at the minute. So we'll start with the game at the weekend. I'll come to you first, Dom. Like I said, 0-0 against a fairly established Championship side. I think it's fair to say about Preston, who've obviously got, I think, by far and away the best defensive record in the league, and the poorest attacking record. So on paper it sort of screamed 0-0 all the way. But what were your thoughts on how the game panned out?
I'm 100% with you with the fact that it has 0-0 just absolutely slapped on its forehead. Like, what else do you expect from a team that's only scored 3 and conceded 4 in 11 games? Like, it just had to be. I did think before the game we would have had maybe enough to do the business on them, and then as the game panned out, you just saw 10 men behind the ball, and you were thinking, yeah, we could have had like Erling Haaland up front, and we still wouldn't be able to break these lot down. It was just, from a fan's point of view, it was a little bit frustrating of the fact that no matter how hard we tried, we did make some good chances, I thought, but it just wasn't to be. And I think I looked at some of the players, like I'm going to pick on Embleton in particular. I thought that there was some chances where he may have been able to get on the end of like a back post cross sometimes, and I thought there might have been times where, that might have been our chance to open the scoring. But when you look at the big picture, their defence is just astronomical. The fact that it's like they almost play for 0-0s this season. I think that's their 6th of the season. It's our first goalless draw since Easter Monday, I think, against Plymouth. So
quite a start.
No, in all seriousness, it's like we have been a goal scoring team for since he who must not be named took charge. It's just it's been nice to think that we haven't had to worry about going down to grounds and not worrying whether we're going to score. But it's just, sometimes you've got to just sit back and just be like, yeah, there was no way we're going to break these down. But on the other hand, you look at it and think, if we did have a striker on the pitch, maybe things would have been different. And the same can be said for the game on Tuesday, but obviously more into that when we address that. But the fact 16 shots from Sunderland and only 2 of them were on target, it says that we desperately need a striker. Like,
yeah, a bit of a game of missed opportunities, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you mentioned Embleton having a couple of chances. I think it's one of the perils of the job when you play with a sort of central midfielder or number 10 playing in that number 9 role. It's they're not somebody who's renowned for the finishing. Be it Embleton, be it Pritchard, who played there a couple of times. Clark's filled in there at times. Ahmad the other night. You can stick a number of players up there, but unless you've got a guy whose sort of main skills finishing, you're always going to struggle, aren't you? Findy, I'll come on to you, mate. What did you reckon of the game at the weekend? Are you agreeing with Dom?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into the game, did look like it was going to be a 0-0 written all over, or a scrappy 1-0 game. I thought we started the game quite well. Preston, we knew they were going to be hard to break down, having one of the best defensive records in the league. But yeah, it massively showed. We were missing that out ball for Sims or Stewart, a big lad up against their big defenders. We didn't have that, and we were trying to play through the lines, which wasn't quite working. They were a very physical side and played to that. I did think Adji Elise is unreal. He had that goal-scoring clearance, which I got no clue how he got there. I thought that was going in. But he's definitely someone for me who is starting to take his opportunities, and it's good to see that competition in the team. With now Dennis returning back to fitness, it's quite interesting for the fullback positions. But yeah, I felt we lacked that clinical edge in the Preston game. Like Dom spoke about Embleton missing a few chances. Paddy Roberts, he had a few, but was looking very, very dangerous, taking players on, getting past them, which we've seen him do many a times. But yeah, I just think a big thing we missed was that out ball. Pato's got the ball, someone to pump it up to your little nippy players. We didn't have that. But overall, I'm not upset with a 0-0. I think it's a clean sheet, which is something we've struggled with a lot this year, but we've kept a clean sheet. And yeah, without our two strikers, I mean, that's something that you could argue if we have had them, maybe would have scored a few. But overall, no, relatively positive. But yeah, very good.
Yeah, I think it's worth coming on, like you pointed out, Adji Elise, I think, has got pretty universal acclaim for his performance at the weekend. And he's put a string of games together now, hasn't he, where he's looked the part. He looks like he's comfortable at this level. And he looks, I mean, realistically, he looks a bit of a snip from what we've paid. I think it was 500,000, I think we've paid from West Ham, which for a player of his age who's, stepped in at a tough period where, a couple of injuries and he just took like a duck to water. I think it is worth, we've all kind of mentioned, obviously struggling to score, no strikers. And so quick look at the comments here, we've got a couple of players, a couple of people in the comments. So even at Graham Giles, our own Ben Carr, Sunderland Mad, but Graham Giles says, only negative is no strikers. It's something that I think, it's on everybody's lips. Mowbray's addressed it a little bit, mentioned the fact that we've got no strikers. But on the flip side, you don't keep 3 clean sheets in 4 games if you haven't, if you're not doing something right at the other end of the pitch. And, maybe you could argue maybe we don't keep the clean sheets if we have strikers in and we're trying to go a bit more attacking. Who knows? It's all ifs and buts and maybes. But yeah, I think it's worth just shining a little bit of that positive light on the back 4 or 5, if you include Patterson, who I think, especially the other night, was superb. But yeah, Preston game, I think, yeah, like we said, it was a draw. You're not going to complain too much. I think they've done it to 5 other teams before us already this season. 5 teams they took 0-0 draws off, so it's clearly something that's their forte. And it's not, I don't think it's a huge indictment on Mowbray's side that they couldn't necessarily break it down. Moving on then to the midweek game, obviously Blackpool the other night. It was, on paper it looks sort of a similar sort of game, realistically, to the Preston game in the way it's turned out. If you look at the stats, I mean, I haven't got every stat for the Preston game in front of us, but I remember off the top of my head, Blackpool, we had 60-something% of the ball. We had, I believe, 14 or 15 shots, but only 3 on target, 3 or 4. Like Dom, you said, it was something similar in the Preston game, 16 shots, 2 on target, maybe. So, to just to the eye of looking at the statistics, you could say, well, it's just more of the same. I'll come back to you this time, Finley. Is that your assessment? Did you think it was a very similar game, or did you see something a bit different against Blackpool?
I thought it was similar. but I did think there was differences in the game. We're getting a lot of shots, but not a lot of them on target. But you look at some of them shots that we did get on target, and we should have won this game. Ahmad, very good opportunity early on, and that bit of confidence which I felt, and he's tried to cut inside. He's done too much with it. He should have just shot and got it off. But we didn't score from that chance. And then right at the end, Jewison Bonette puts in an absolute peach of a cross, which lands on Jack Clark's head, and the keeper's pulled a worldy save. And look, them two chances alone, we've won 2-0. But something I did think that we against Blackpool, the set pieces, especially defending set pieces, I thought Blackpool were very dangerous, and we haven't got a lot of big to our team. And it looked like almost for me every corner, every free kick, they were going to get a shot off on target. But the big thing for me was one at the start of the season was saying, Anthony Patterson, is he good enough? And like you said, Johnny, these 2 games has absolutely showed his class. He was outstanding in the Blackpool game. Saved us a lot of times. But he is like, he's new, so he is going to be still lacking a little bit of confidence. That was something I noticed with the set pieces, is he's not always there to come out. However, his positional sense, like Tony Mowbray said in the press conference this week, is next to none. It's amazing. It's brilliant. But
I totally. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. However, like I said, I think something different over these 2 games compared to your Watford game and the Reading game was, I think, the impact of this, especially against Blackpool. I think he changed it a bit too early, and we lost the rhythm in the game, and that second half very hard to get out of, really. Blackpool were on us, but I did a lot down to the subs. He's trying to win the game, I understand, but completely lost the rhythm for us. But no, overall, it was different, and still a bit of quality there. You see the little tiki-taka plays, which is exciting, but again, lacking that clinical.
Yeah. You're just cutting out ever so slightly now and then, Finley, but we got most of what you were saying. But I thought, good analysis of the game. You raised a few points that I want to come back to after I asked Dom about his thoughts on the game. You talked about Patterson, you talked about defending set pieces, and what was the third thing you said? It's totally gone out of my head. Defending set pieces, Patterson, and the substitutions, in particular in the Blackpool game, because I'm totally with you there. I was excited to see the names coming on because I want to see more of the young lads and I want to see how they get on. And it felt like we needed a change, but it did. Then once we kind of gutted the midfield really and sort of totally changed it round. And then I feel like after that, like you say, there wasn't any momentum, couldn't string passes together. They just didn't look comfortable. But yeah, we'll park them for a minute because I do want to talk about them a little bit more in depth after this. But Dom, I'll come to you now. So Finley, like I say, has identified a number of areas he sees some differences in the performances. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I definitely saw differences. I thought this one was a bit more fair, where the other one was just pure frustration. I think that, like you say, if we had a striker on the pitch, I think it was easy win. But the fact that we didn't, it opened them up to get more on the counter attack. I thought there was chances in the game where arguably Blackpool could have gone and won the game. I think that wonder save from Patterson late on in the game was just a thing of sheer class, really. And I do agree the fact that there is lacking that tiny little bit, but obviously nobody's perfect in this world. He does his job so far, and that's really all you can ask from a young lad in the sticks. So other than that, I thought, like you say, it was like Finley said, it was really a tale of if we had a striker. The fact that some of the chances we were putting in, they were just bread and butter Ross Stewart or bread and butter Ellis Sims. You've got those two players that can use both their head and their feet. And after you look at them, and when you see just Agiolise just storming forward, and you're like, hang on a minute, he's playing left back, but all of he spends most of the game up front. It's like I like the fact that there are players in our team who are charging forward and getting shots for themselves, because like you can score goals without a striker, but you would prefer the fact that the main man did their job. So whoever was going to get chucked up front was obviously going to have the hardest task, I think. Personally, I didn't know why. I thought we should have given Max Thompson a shout. The fact that we've got no striker, we haven't really got much to lose, and the fact that we are playing well, but the fact is we have no nailed on striker. So I thought we could have chucked him on and just see how it goes, but obviously Mowbray's tactics, it's still a point. The 2 points out of a possible 6, but they are points in a very hard league, so you do have to look at the positives and things. I think like you've both said, I think Dewey, even Mishu, bar they all shone on Tuesday night. I thought when Mishu came on, I thought out of the three, I thought he made the most impact. For me personally, I know Diallo and Dewey did their own little thing, but there's some sort of like calmness I get out of Mishu, that when he came on, he just looked like he wanted to get stuck in and just try and break them down, and that's really all you want, I think.
Yeah, that's the composure.
Yeah, that's really all you want. So all in all, it's just a thing of frustrating, but I think overall in the big picture, it was probably a fair result.
Yeah, I think I feel like most fans would probably agree. You know, the Preston game, while on paper, like I said, you know, 2-0 with certain similarities, but I think the Preston game, by all accounts, it was a game that we probably should have put to bed. Whereas Blackpool, you know, that first half against Blackpool was some of the best football I've seen us play in a long time. I know we didn't score any goals, but you know, it reminds me of the time, actually going back a few years now, when we played Man United away under Poyet in the Great Escape season.
Oh yeah,
that little passage of play that ends with, I think, is it Barini hitting the crossbar? But like, you know, the whole team's involved, and it's a brilliant move, and it's like that's far from being a wonder goal. There was like a couple of different moves we had. You know, on Tuesday, it felt like that.
Well, Mowbray said after the game, I was reading like little notes before we went on. He said the level we want to play, like in this league, is what you saw in the first half. Like everyone trying to get involved, putting the ball in the box, and he just said it was as if we ran out of legs in the second half, and there just wasn't that intensity to win the ball out of possession.
But yeah, I think as well, that's kind of something that comes with that style of play, where when you've got that high intensity, obviously it helps you break teams down and it helps you get a foothold in the game. But you really need to put one or two of those chances away so that you can take your foot off the gas a little bit earlier, because you don't have to be going hell for leather to get the opener when you've already scored. And you know, you can then, once you've got a goal or two, you can sit off a little bit. They've got to come at you, so you get a little bit more space to exploit. And yeah, I just think it's one of those games where, you know, it could have ended up being a really comfortable night, but just gone the other way. The president of the Corey Evans fan club is invading this chat really, really rudely, talking about Corey Evans before it's time, trying to get the Evans klaxon to go off early. But yeah, this ties into one of the things I wanted to come back and talk about, actually. So, you know, Finlay mentioned the subs changing the momentum of the game, and obviously one of the men who made way for the raft of new youngsters was Corey Evans, who made way in the second half. I can't remember whether he was in that first group or the second group that came off. But to my eyes, you know, we did miss him when he went off. He's got that calm and presence. He sits there, he breaks the play up. He knows his role. He's a very unselfish player, I think. You know, obviously, it's great to have people in who want to take the game by the scruff of the neck and go and do something. But I feel like you need an Evans there sitting, you know, to give you a base to build on, which, you know, rewind 12 months and say that to us on this show, and I think we'd all laugh you off. Like, but, you know, I've got to agree with Ben there. And talking more generally about them changes, like I say, Finlay mentioned it. We just seem to stutter almost, you know. I thought Barr and Mishu in particular, there were a couple of occasions where they were attempting a bit of interplay between themselves, or Barr and Clark on that far side, on the right hand side. You know, they'd try a little 1-2, or more accurately, one of them would try a 1-2 and the other one's not. He's not there. He's not ready for it. So after seeing how much of an impact that had on the game, do you think that might serve as a warning for Mowbray in the future to take it a bit easier with his changes? Do you think he'll stick with that kind of positive, ambitious approach? Is it better to bring as many of the young players on to give them minutes as possible, or is it better to have a bit more of a balance so that one or two comes in at a time and adjusts to the team and kind of gels a bit more fluidly that way? Which is kind of the preferred approach, do you think, after seeing the game? I'll come back to you for that one, Dom. It's a bit of a broad question, but pick apart what of it you can.
I think when you think of like the people we brought in, one of the selling points have to have been like the flair and the fact that they're young, and you've got to look at that and be like, well, that's one of the reasons we brought them in. We need youth, and I think so far this season and a little bit last season towards the end, that youth over experience somehow did play a part in our victory. So I'm not particularly against taking off some of the more experienced people like Evans for make way for the youngsters, because I think so far the main four that we brought in looks promising, especially when you see Dewey coming on and all he wants to do is just win that ball back. He was basically playing left back at one point on Tuesday. The fact he was just chasing his man down, trying to fight for that ball back. So I think Mowbray's real decision is whether he wants how to find that perfect balance. Because Evans is massive for our team. He just calms everything down, and then you've got people like Mishu who can also calm everything down and control the tempo. It's like, is there a way of working all those talented people into one squad? But when they're trying, like Finn said, trying something a little bit too much, where the easier option would have just been pass to that person who's through on goal and potentially get a shot on target, if not a goal. I think even Gooch is going to be held accountable for that. Where I think there was a time on Tuesday night, I'll point out in particular, where he was, for the pardon me French, fannying about.
I already knew what you were going to say as soon as you mentioned it. Just
fannying about with the ball, and then he gets dispossessed and he's shouting at the teammates as if it was their fault. And I'm sat there like, that is completely your doing. And I think Gooch does get a lot of unnecessary stick, but when he's doing stuff like that, it's very difficult to defend.
He doesn't help himself at times, does he?
No, he doesn't. You're right. So I think even that just proves even the experienced players can sometimes be just as accountable as the youngsters for trying that little bit extra. So for me, I think
too hard at times, isn't it? I think especially with players like Gooch, he's so passionate. And 09, I think, falls into it at times where
I do
you want to make up for like the frustration of not getting a goal, and then it sort of comes out the wrong way, doesn't it?
I think there was even, I think just before he was the incident we mentioned, he just like made a last gasp tackle to win the ball back, and then he just started just dancing around near the ball, like not knowing what to do with it. And you sat there like, we just want to applaud you for the thing you've just done, and then you've just completely thrown it out the window within 4 seconds. So for me, I think really it's just, and this kind of jumps in with the substitutions talk of like, just Mowbray seems to make the right decisions at the right time so far this season. Touch wood. I think he knows what he's doing when he brings someone off. 9 times out of 10 it goes in our favour.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. You know, it's all well and good pointing out when it doesn't work, but you know, sometimes he throws on Dewey, you know, late on in the game, and he bags us a late equaliser at Watford, so it can go one or two ways, can't it? I'll come back to you, Finn, quickly on it, because obviously you brought up the substitutions yourself, but going forward, slightly more longer term, do you see Mowbray's strategy of being quite bold with his substitutions and not being afraid to make changes? Are you behind that? Is that something you're happy to see, or do you worry about the impact it could have on the sort of squad cohesion?
I don't think it's going to change Mowbray and his way a lot. I think you look at the bench and there's 4 or 5 players. arguably could be in a chance with starting. I think the competition is really, really strong. But like Dom touched on it, I think look at some of the players and they are trying a bit more than maybe what they should be. And like you said, Johnny, they're trying to do this intertwined play and get the passes together. And it's just not quite working. But I think a lot of that is you've got to remember a lot of these guys are new faces. A lot of them have never played football in England before. It's a new country, new language. But I think that will just come over time. And as much as we say these subs, it didn't work. Again, it disrupted the game, which it did. You look at Watford and you bought them 4 or 5 players on, and it completely opened the game, completely changed it. And like you said, Dewey scored, and we've got a 2-2 draw off Watford. But no, overall, you look at the subs, and I felt against Blackpool in that second half, we were missing that Corey Evans play. His positional sense is superb. He does his job amazingly, and like you touched on it, Johnny, he's very unselfish. He's always looking to play others in and get the attacks going, which I felt we missed. But someone who I felt we missed from the off against Blackpool was Dan Neil. It was his only change. And I felt in the game against Blackpool, you were looking for that one person to slide the pass into with the pace of Diallo, Roberts, Clark, and Dan Neil is exceptional at them. And I felt we missed him in the first half. However, in the second half, he came on and he was playing that Evans role, but didn't quite act the same. But no, overall, I think Mowbray will still use the subs. I think it'll be for Swansea. His press conference. I think it's going to be a bit more open. The two teams we've seen, or 9 behind the ball, very defensive, whereas Swansea are going to be looking to get forward. But yeah, no, I don't think he'll change a lot on they've worked for us and they've worked against us, but I guess that's luck, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's all about getting the balance right, you know. You want it to work for you more times than it doesn't. Just to very quickly, getting more of an argument with Ben in the chat. Come on, Luke O'Nine's been one of our best players this season. I said he was too passionate, all right? You want to take that as a criticism, yeah, you take it. But I won't have bad words said about my boy, okay? I ain't saying him. Dom ain't saying him. Yeah, our boy, all right?
Our sweet prince. There's literally a shrine behind me.
Yeah, don't ever disrespect him, okay?
He's great.
Don't put words in my mouth, sunshine. But a good evening as well to Lauren Kenny. I can see he's just joined the chat, who is echoing Ben's sentiments. Evans has been outstanding this season. I think we'd all agree. He hasn't really put. I was going to say he hasn't put a foot wrong. There's been a couple of hairy occasions he's given balls away in slightly dangerous locations, including on I think on Tuesday night. Yeah, there was one where he gave away, and really Blackpool should have done a lot better with it. And we got away with one a bit, but by and large, he's been definitely one of our best midfielders. To come back to one of the points Finley raised before, talk about another player who I would like to heap some praise on. We've all talked about him a bit. Anthony Patterson, I think, has shown in the past month or so, why he's so valuable to this team and why successive managers now have both, come in and seen him and seem to show absolute faith in him. He made a couple of great saves. Dom, you mentioned, the sort of wonder save he made, clawing one off the line. There was a couple of times where balls were kind of pinballing around the box from set pieces, which again we'll get onto in a minute. And he's had to be very alert, and he's made a couple of good stops. And he seems to kind of be growing in confidence week on week. The longer that the number 1 shirt is his, I feel like it'll only do him the world of good in his development. I certainly have had no issues with him since he's come in. So I just wanted to, discuss him a little bit. So, where do you feel his strongest areas are? Where could he improve? And do you see him being our long-term number one? Give it another 3 or 4 transfer windows. Do you still think Patterson will be kind of Sunderland's first choice keeper? So I'll come to Finn first. Talk to me about Pato, local hero.
Well, I touched everyone said at the start of the season, was he going to be good enough? Could he do it at this level? We've seen in that playoff final an amazing save with his legs. We knew he had that in him. Started the season, and like you say, he's been terrific. He's not put a foot wrong many times. And the past 2 games, he's been one of our best players. He has really put his stamp on that number 1 spot. I think he'll keep that for a good couple of seasons if he carries on performing. It's 2 clean sheets for him as well, which I think is going to do him load of confidence. But something I did notice in the past 2 games, which is perhaps maybe not just him, maybe the 2 centre backs as well, is times we're trying to play out from the back when we're under a load of pressure and we need to just clear it and reset ourselves. Obviously, Tony Mowbray was a bit like it on the touchline for a few of them to hoof the ball and relieve the defence of a bit of stress. But I think that will only come with time. I think he's just going to go up from here. Very positive and really playing very well, which is from a goalkeeper.
And it's great, like you said. Not only a clean sheet is good for the team as a whole and the whole defensive unit. It's great as a goalkeeper, isn't it? When clean sheets are something they can point to, a very tangible measure of success across the season. I think we went a good few games at the beginning of the season without managing to keep a clean sheet, shipping the odd goal in most games. So it's good to get a run of, I think it's 3 and 4 now, isn't it, in the league? The last 2 games and then the Reading game where we blew them away. I'll come back to you now, Dom. So Patterson, we've heard some searing praise. Try not to choke too much when you answer this question.
I'll try.
What's your thoughts on Patterson so far? How impressed have you been with him?
I'm fully with you on here. The fact that I don't think there's much you can nitpick him for. I think when you especially think of the way how he's come into the squad, he was last season, he never knew whether he was going to be in Nottingham or in Sunderland. The fact that he was here, then he was loaned out, then back, then loaned out, then back. So that's, especially at a young age, that's going to mess with your head. So the fact that he was able to have the form that he did last season was a miracle in itself. But the fact that he's been able to bring that into the higher division, the more physical division, I think there's not really much you can complain about. I say that he does actually have a lot of not haters, but there's quite a bit of Sunderland fans who have a bit bad to say about him. Most notably Matthew Leeds' dad, but we won't get into that. Apparently, he'll probably say that the save he made on Tuesday was just bread and butter goalkeeping. But I think so far he's impressed a lot. There's been multiple games last season. I think there's arguments for games this season, especially on Tuesday, where he's made match-winning saves or he's kept us in games. I know he's not here now, but if he chucked Hoffman in goal or Lee Burge, that's not going to be happening. Even Alex Bass, I don't think he's making some of the saves that...
Stop mentioning these names, please.
I know.
I need to take a minute.
It's nice to have a goalkeeper, which is good. Can I just say it? The fact since Pickford leaving, we've had 1 good goal. Well, 2. I think there's an argument for John McLaughlin because I do think.
I thought he was a good keeper. Yeah,
I think he was a very good keeper. But other than him, I think the one who shines above them all is Anthony Patterson. I think. I never want to hear his name ever again, by the way. It boggles me mind that people can say bad about him. Yeah, his he gets a bit of stick for his distribution. It's not great, but
We're
also
in the Championship.
yeah, it's
Not
like
every goalkeeper is Jordan Pickford.
yeah, do you know what I mean? Like yes, he may not be the greatest goalkeeper in the league, but he does his job right. He knows what he has to do, and most of the time, like he's organised and he's composed. The fact that he's in one of the most physical, if not the most physical league in world football, and he's managing to keep his place. Alex Bass hasn't had a sniff in, and rightfully so. That number one shirt is well and truly his, so I've got absolutely no complaints.
Yeah, I mean, like he's a boss. I mean, he's been great, hasn't he? Since he's come in, he hasn't really looked like being dropped. There hasn't really been any sort of spells where he's been personally at fault for many goals. I think if you were going to be a little bit critical and point at areas he should improve, I think for me, and this ties into what we're going to talk about next, especially at set pieces, I think at times he looks uncomfortable when there's balls coming into the area. And like you said a few times, Dom, we are in a very, very physical division. You need to be, if you're a centre half, you need to be big and strong or know how to use your strength to get by. I think at times, not so much that he struggles, but he just doesn't look confident. I think, if you were going to point at somewhere that he would want to improve to further himself, I think that might be it. But like I said, this ties into, talking about attacking and defending set pieces in general. It's been an issue, I think, that's come up over the last 12 to 18 months, really, is our organisation at set pieces, any dead balls, be it corners, free kicks into the box, anything like that. I feel like it's not been a catastrophic problem, but we haven't looked fantastic at it. So, do you think, first of all, do you think it is a big issue? And if it is, where do you think that's coming from? Is it because obviously now we're on our second manager in that time, or third if you're including the Lee Johnson period? So where is it coming from? Is it on the coaching on the training ground? Is it the coach? Is it the players themselves? Is there just something that we're missing? What is it that's going on here? I'll come back to you first here, Dom.
I don't know. I think when you're asking is a problem, I'd say it's definitely a problem, but I think there is bigger problems in the club. Obviously, the fact we've got no striker to Pig's set pieces on their big, lovely Loch Ness forehead. So there is
Loch Ness forehead. I like it.
You do need to think about the fact that is one of the reasons that the set piece isn't working. But like I said, there has been times even when we had picking Charlie White up front, it wasn't working, But I think you do have to look at the coaches for that, because obviously at the end of the day, they're the ones who are teaching them what to do and they're displaying the tactics. So I think they do have a say in this, but I don't really know if I'm completely honest. I think sometimes I think the point I'm going to bring out is last season, like you say, against Plymouth, where we played it short across the box from a corner, and I think it was Dan Neil backheeled it into the net, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is great! This is set piece masterclass, one for the training ground, all that cliche rubbish." And then you go on to a few games after, and then the corners were just hopelessly pinging it into the box, and they're none of our players are getting a sniff in. We had that Conga-esque corner tactic we stole from England at the Russian World Cup a while back, and it worked for a bit, but I think all in all, a tactic will work until you get found out, and then you've got to just keep thinking of new ones. So I don't really know. I think when it comes to that, we've got to try new things. We can't just have one thing that worked once and then hope it sticks, because sooner or later you will get found out. So as long as we're just trying different ways and we're implementing that and we're showing that in games, I think we shouldn't really have anything majorly to worry about.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you're especially from an attacking point of view, set pieces, there's only so many times you can do a routine before somebody works out how to stop you. And I think at times, like you said, not having a focal point of attack doesn't help. The only real height we have in defence at the minute is the Punjabi Prince, Danny Barr. Daniel Tanverbart himself, who, by the way, was brilliant this week and deservedly made it in the team of the week, I think. A little shout out to him. But yeah, I think just perhaps little things coming together. Finn, I'll come to you. Want to focus a little bit more on defending the set pieces. Just from, I haven't got anything data-wise to back it up, but just from watching our games, when I have been able to watch them, we don't quite feel like we've got enough cohesion and understanding when we're defending set pieces. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Johnny. I think a lot of that is to do with the lack of height in the team. Like you say, we've only got Danny Barth, who's the tall one, and we are missing a striker for a defence. Yes, they're amazing at attacking, but they're also crucial in defending set pieces because they've got the height, they know how to put off the strikers. So I think that plays a big part in the defensive side of it. I also think potentially you could argue this might be a weakness of Pato's is his communication. And, we've seen sometimes he comes for a ball and then he's 50-50.
Yeah.
He's coming, he's staying back, he's coming, he's staying back. But no, the last two games, they're both very physical sides. Like you said, this league is a very physical side, very physical league. And I just think at the minute, due to injuries, we're quite not up to that standard yet. Obviously, Dan Ballard, he's someone who's someone we're missing as well from the centre backs. When he's back, that adds another bit of physicality and height. Also, you're adding your strikers' height, your strikers' physicality back. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment because I think once players are back from injury, I think we will be sort of more secure. And yeah, like Dom said, I think there's bigger problems on the pitch to worry about than just defending set pieces. But it is one where, especially against Blackpool, felt like they were going to score off every single one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like you said, you both mentioned it. There are bigger issues. It's just something that I'm sure Mowbray and his staff are more than aware of these things, and thinking about ways to overcome these hurdles. But yeah, just something that's worth bearing in mind, I think, as we progress through the season. And speaking of progressing through the season, we'll move on now and look at the game tomorrow, which some lucky people in this live stream have got tickets to, and some don't. With Swansea, obviously, away tomorrow, who are a side who are above us in the league, 6th in the table, I think they are. They're a side that, obviously, for the last sort of decade, really have been known for playing very good passing football. They're a side who likes to keep the ball on the deck, very much the way that we've sort of played the last month or so since Big Tone's come in. They have had some decent results this season, and they'll certainly be quite a big test for us. It's the kind of game that you kind of look at on paper and you think, we're probably not. They're probably the favourites, but it's far from a nailed-on win for the home side. So taking the last couple of games into account, what do you think the approach is going to be then from Tony Mowbray? Because obviously playing a good side away from home is a very different proposition to being the home side who has the sort of license to get forward and try and play football. So I'll come back to you first, Finn, but we've got a couple of comments. So DJ Sizzler Watson here saying, I'd like to see a plan B, like we showed at Watford, which is obviously the last away game that we've played in the league. So a pretty good comparison. We've got Gregory Gavin Fennick saying, reckon we need to move Gooch further up the field, and he'd like to see Benete up front from the start tomorrow in place of Ahmad. So yeah, Finn, what's your kind of, not prediction, but how do you see tomorrow being approached from a tactical point of view by the coaching staff?
Well, I don't think we're going to change a lot. I think we're going to go at it like we have been. But I think the big thing that's going to go in our favour, hopefully, is the team isn't going to sit back. They're not going to put 8 behind the ball like we've seen with Preston and Blackpool. And something which Tony Mowbray said in his press conference was Swansea are very attackive with their fullbacks, which I think we're gonna expose quite a lot, hopefully tomorrow, because we do like playing in the wider channels with the pace of Clark, Roberts, and I do think Jewison Bonete is going to start for us tomorrow. From the way it sounds, I think it will be for Amad Diallo, and I think his raw pace and his skill and his directness hopefully will go in our favour. However, you look at Swansea, they're very well organised. They've got some very experienced players among the ranks. Joe Allen won. They're very well secured in the Championship, and they were in the Premier League not so long ago. So I do think it's going to be a tough test. And you look, they've got one star man I would pull out would be Joel Pirro, a very tall, strong striker who scored 4 goals. But no, overall, I think from our point about it the same way, and I think it's going to work probably more in our favour, like we've seen against Reading, like we've seen against Watford. Teams at home don't like to sit behind the ball; they like to attack. So I think it's going to be a less defensive game. I think teams are going to be open; they're going to be there. It's whether we can put the passes together and get the balls played into the right players. But I do think it will be a tough game. So I could see it going either way for me. So yeah, but from our perspective, I think we'll play the same way.
Yeah, so I expect more of the same from us tactics-wise. I totally agree, by the way. I think it's going to be an open game. I think, if there's any neutrals watching, I think they're probably in for a good match tomorrow because 2 teams who like to play their football. Like you said, that Swansea aren't going to want to sit back and just, try and nick a goal on the counter. They're going to want to take the game to us. Which could potentially open the spaces for the likes of Bonete if he starts. Clark's not short of pace. Roberts is, quick over the first few yards. We've got plenty of options in those areas to try and exploit that if, like you say, if we can get the quality balls into the right areas. Dom, come to you. Tomorrow's game, how are you feeling about it? What do you see us doing? Any surprises do you reckon we'll spring, or what are you thinking?
To be honest, I have to agree with most of what Finn has said. I think the players that they have, like Joel Pirro, Michael Obafemi is in a little bit of form at the moment. Even Oliver Sham, like we know these players can all do the business, and then you've got like the old heads in the squad, like Joe Allen, who can I personally think can still do the business. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game, as you say. In all honesty, I'm very pessimistic for once. I'm not hopeful for this game at all. I just think the fact that you can look at the fact that we've gone into some very frustrating games, and I think this might be the one where we actually might be able to get something from it, because we were all thinking the same at Watford, that they haven't had. Yes, they're a good team, but there's definitely ways of getting the results from them, which we on another day would have done absolutely. We did get the point, of course, but there was chances in there where you thought on another day we would have won this game. So there is that. If we do win this game, I believe we go above them into the playoff places. So that is always something to look forward to. By the way, if anyone told us that we were in contention for playoff places like 12 games in, I think anyone would have just bit your hand off for the fact of that. I think I don't think it's arrogant to say that we've been one of the surprise packages of the season so far. So I think there is I'm trying, right? I'm trying to talk myself. I don't know if you can tell I'm trying to talk myself up as I go through. We're going to absolutely win, but then you've got stats like they've won 4 out of their last 5 games. Oh, Dave the Rave, I just love that man so much. Eat, sleep, Dave the Rave, repeat prayer. Like that is just That's the greatest username you've ever
That's the
heard in the
positivity you
world.
needed, Dom. That's that. I'm
Yeah,
helping you keep yourself up.
we're gonna win the league now. Honestly, like,
Move over,
but-
boys. HMS Pistolets in town.
no, but on all seriousness, they have won 4 out of the last 5 games, so they know how to win games, they know how to score as well. They have got that class, but you could argue that we've got the class as well. So I do agree that it's going to be an interesting game, no matter which way the wind blows. I think either team would be very happy with the result against the opposition, because I think they were one of the teams nailed on to be fighting for promotion. I don't think many people saw us. I thought any team we played, they're thinking, right, they've got fight in them, but we don't really know where they're going to be come May, sort of thing. But when you look at like historical, there's only bar 2 goalless draws in 2013 and 2014. There's always been at least 2 goals scored in this fixture, whether that be like there's been a few 1-1 draws, and then there's been games where it's like Swansea have won like 4-0, 3-0, we've beaten them 4-2 down there. Obviously Defoe getting a hat-trick down there the last time we won down there. But interestingly, we've only won one of the last 5 trips to it's now the Swansea.com stadium now. I nearly said the Liberty there.
Oh, I don't like that.
No, I don't like that.
Stadium, please.
But here's a fun fact for you. That 4-2 win that I just mentioned is our first win in Swansea in almost 60 years. The last time we beat they were actually called Swansea Town. The last time we beat them in November 1963, 59 years ago. So that's why I'm not hopeful. The stats don't lie.
In the chat here.
But like, hopefully we're going to make that 3 wins in 60 years now. But no, in all seriousness, I've come around now. I think that we have got it in us to do the business, but you do have to think that it is going to be a very, very tough game. But no matter what happens, I think there won't be much doubt if we are going to give up our all, because the style of play between the Prestons and the Blackpool and Swansea, there's just that difference in the way they play and the way their games flow. So I do think this is going to be a much easier watch. Even if we do lose, we know it's going to be like at least an entertaining game. So
well, it should. I mean, it's a bit of a, not a unique position, but it's a position we haven't found ourselves in too many times over the past 5 years, where realistically we're the underdogs going into this game. I know if you want to get into the size of club debate, we're probably a bigger club than Swansea. Don't come for us, Swansea fans. But, attendances, club size, history, all that. But in terms of, on the pitch, the 11s and the recent performances of each side, not only are they in better form than we are in the last few games, like you've said, they're an established championship side at this point. They're expected to push for the playoffs, where we are, like you say, a bit of a surprise package. So it could be a benefit for especially the younger players, I think, to have a game after 2 games in a row where you're at home against teams who are going to sit back. The pressure is all on us at that point to break teams down and make things happen. It could be a bit of a weight off the shoulders for the likes of Benetti, Bar if he sees minutes, Ahmad if he gets on the pitch, and even Clark Roberts, these type of players where it's less a case of, okay, here's a ball with 8 players in front of you, go and score a goal somehow. It's far more a game of trying to take your moments when they come and trying to, instead of having to stretch a team, being able to take advantage of these sorts of things. So, I think you could play it into our hands in a sense where we've got a bit more of a license to play with a bit of freedom, as opposed to Swansea, who their fans, certainly if nobody else, will expect them to give us a hard time, because we are the newly promoted side after all. So the last few years we've been in League One, and everyone's either we have expected to turn up and beat people, or everyone's slagged us off for it looking like we expect to turn up everywhere and beat people, depending on who you believe. So it's a bit of a, definitely not a free hit, because it's a game we should be competitive in, but it's a game where we've got bit of an opportunity to play with a bit of freedom. I think it's fair to say. So before we finish the stream for the night, I'll come for a score prediction from each of you. So we've talked a good game about, oh, we'll do this and we'll do that and it'll be a good game. But now you're going to nail your colours to the mast. Finn, I'll come to you first, mate. Tell me how many goals each team are going to score now.
Oh, well, I think it will be a very tough test. Like you say, we're the newly promoted side. Swansea are gonna think, oh, we're gonna walk all over them. But like you say, we are an unexpected package. So I think we're gonna nick this one. I think it's gonna be 2-1.
Nice. I like the positivity. So Glenn Miller and Dave the Raves, positivity is seeping in and it's infecting us, and we've all got smiles on our faces. So Finn's saying 2-1. Just to balance that out, we've got Jess 2000, pardon me, in the chat who says Swansea 2, Sunderland 1. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Imperfect demonstration there. Dom, mate. Positive.
I wanted to go Desmond because I think, to be honest, this is good. I genuinely think it's going to be a draw. I'd like to think we are going to nick it, like Finn says. We are the surprise package of the championship so far. So I'd like to think it's going to be 2-1, but hand on heart, my honest prediction, I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think the points will be once again shared.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think anyone could give any prediction. You could provide a solid kind of justification for it for a game like this. It is so finely poised, and Finn said before, it could go either way. But we've got Alan Robinson again pouring cold water on our fire of positivity, saying 2-0 to Swansea. But I'm going to go for the opposite of that. I'm going to say 2-0 to the lads. I think we've played some really good stuff at times over the last few weeks, and it's not quite come off. I think tomorrow's the day where instead of hitting the bar, it drops in the corner. Instead of Clark's header getting saved, it creeps over the line. I think it's going to be one of them where we get those couple of moments. And I feel like we've been defending really well. We look well drilled as a team. We look a good unit. So I'm going to foolishly give a positive prediction and say 2-0 to Sunderland. Just ready to get my heart broken tomorrow when I check my phone and I say that it's just gone 4-0 before half-time.
Where's Ben's prediction? Where's Mr. Positivity himself?
I'm not seeing Ben Carr's prediction in the live chat over at this side of the screen, so I'm not too happy. But yeah, I'm going to say 2-0. Dom, you're going with a 1-1, not quite the Desmond, but still a draw. And Finn's going 2-1 to the lads, so very positive. Which let's all hope that we see a bit of that tomorrow. So that's pretty much us done now. So all that remains to be done is to say to everybody who's making the trip, the long trip from wherever you're going down to the what was it? Did you say the Swansea.com stadium?
The Swansea.com stadium.
Yeah, everyone who's making
5 o'clock start in the morning.
Yeah, so everybody who's got some horrible alarm set for the morning, making the trek down to the Swansea.com stadium, safe travels, and make sure you take your singing voices and get behind the lads. Hope everyone enjoys the day out in the game tomorrow. Fingers crossed the lads bring us back a good performance to go with it. And yeah, that is all she wrote from us. So good. I was going to say good luck to everyone. Safe travels to everyone. Hope you take some good luck for the lads. And yeah, we'll all be here to dissect the fallout next week.
Well, lads.